Sup, this is Brother Buff from the Church of the Holy and the Swoley. And this week's Torah Portion, Vayetze, is all about people struggling. And through your struggles, I want you to remember that he who trusts in the Lord will renew his strength. He will walk and not grow faint. He will run and not grow weary. And he will fly on wings as eagles.
The lights go down when we hit the stage. The heart of the crowd begins to race. The people in the chairs all take a stand. We're rocking and rolling for the son of man. Rocking and rolling, yeah.
Vayetze, or "and he went out," comes to us from Genesis chapter 28, verse 10 through 32, verse 2. And this week's Torah portion, one of the big themes I noticed running through all of this was people striving for things, people working for things. And not only the things that they were striving for, but also the means that they used when they were striving for these things. So first let's look at Genesis chapter 29, verses 15 through 20. Then Laban said to Jacob, "Because you are my kinsman, should you therefore serve me for nothing? Tell me, what shall your wages be?" Now Laban had 2 daughters. The name of the older was Leah, and the name of the younger was Rachel. Leah's eyes were weak, but Rachel was beautiful in form and appearance. Jacob loved Rachel, and he said, "I will serve you for 7 years, for your younger daughter Rachel." Laban said, "It is better that I give her to you than that I should give her to any man. Stay with me." So Jacob served for 7 years for Rachel, and they seemed to him but a few days because of the love he had for her. So Jacob was serving Laban, doing work with his livestock and around the house and things like that, and he wanted his payment to be the right to marry Rachel, because that's who he was in love with. And notice how it says he worked for 7 years, but those years seemed to pass by as a day, or a few days. It was because of his love for Rachel that time passed so quickly, or seemed to pass so quickly. One of the things that we have to remember is every labor is easier when it's done out of love. When we find that we're struggling in our acts of service and our acts of obedience to the Lord, one of the first things we should do is pray, "Lord, help me to love you more." Remind ourselves of the goodness of the Lord, so that as we strive to serve better and to follow more closely, we are able to do this better and more easily, because it's not out of obligation or it's not out of fear, but it's out of love. And the fact of the matter is, the Lord wants us to serve out of love. So we went from working or striving out of love to striving for love. In Genesis chapter 29, verse 31 and 32, this is after Jacob tries to marry Rachel, but then is given Leah instead. So Jacob now has a wife that he didn't want, and Leah has a husband that, from what we can tell, she didn't necessarily want. They're both in a bad situation. But because Leah is trying to make the best of the situation, she wants to make Jacob love her. And so in Genesis chapter 29, verse 31 through 32, when the Lord saw that Leah was hated, he opened her womb, but Rachel was barren. And Leah conceived and bore a son, and she called his name Reuben. For she said, "Because the Lord has looked upon my affliction, for now my husband will love me." Leah wanted her husband's love. She wanted to make the best of the situation that Laban had put her in. Remember, this was not Jacob's choice, and most likely this was not Leah's choice. Laban was essentially going for the hat trick of ruining lives. He managed to ruin Leah's life, he managed to ruin Rachel's life, and he managed to ruin Jacob's life all in one night. That's pretty impressive for a diabolical supervillain. For a father, that's just messed up. And Leah's really showing some classic signs of codependency. She's giving and giving and giving, almost like her view of herself is dependent on whether or not Jacob loves her. But the thing we have to remember is when we find ourselves in those situations like Leah, there is somebody who loves us. There's somebody who loves us unconditionally, and that person is Yeshua. The sacrifices Leah made are nothing compared to the sacrifices that Yeshua made. And we can console ourselves with that, and we can understand that our striving is not going to earn God's love. Sometimes we end up like Leah. We're striving for God's love. We're trying to read the Bible enough, or we're trying to pray enough, or we're trying to do enough good works, or we're trying to attend synagogue or church enough. And in reality, the Lord loves us unconditionally. Now, all of these things are good things to do, and all of these things make the Lord happy. But the Lord's love is not contingent on that.
That's right. You don't have to be spiritually shredded in order for the Lord to love you. In fact, it says in Romans that when we were still helpless, Messiah died for us.
In Genesis chapter 30, verses 31 through 36, we have this passage. Laban said, "What shall I give you?" Jacob said, "You shall not give me anything if you will do this for me. I will again pasture your flock and keep it. Let me pass through your flock today, removing from it every speckled or spotted sheep and every black lamb, and the spotted and speckled among the goats, and they shall be my wages. So my honesty will answer for me later. When you come to look into my wages with you, every one that is not speckled and spotted among the goats and black among the lambs, if found with me, shall be counted stolen." Laban said, "Good, let it be as you have said." But that day Laban removed all the male goats that were striped and spotted, and all the female goats that were speckled and spotted, every one that had white on it, and every lamb that was black, and put them in the charge of his son. And he set a distance of 3 days' journey between himself and Jacob pastured the rest of Laban's flock. So Jacob and Laban set up a deal, and whatever sheep or goats that were born speckled or spotted would be Jacob's pay. But Laban tried to cheat. He wanted to remove all of the speckled and spotted parents from the flock so that way there would be no chance of a speckled or spotted child being born, speckled or spotted sheep or lamb. But the Lord blessed Jacob in what he did. Jacob did some business with poplar trees and everything like that near the water source, and that was based on something that at the time was just an old wives' tale. But the Lord blessed him anyway. When we work and strive to provide for our families and provide for our loved ones, the Lord is also taking care of us. Don't forget, the Lord owns his sheep on 1,000 hills. Everything that is under the earth is the Lord's to give. So we work, and we work hard at what we do, but we have to remember it's ultimately the Lord that blesses the work of our hands. So what are some things that we strive for that maybe help us in our walk with the Lord? And what are some things that we strive for that take our focus away from our walk with the Lord? Let me know in the comments. And if we gave you a laugh, give us a like. And if you learned something, give us a share. I'm the Messianic Torah Dude. Shalom, and stay in the Word.